we've been talking about the cloud a lot on Squawk Alley, and a big part of what's going on right now is big game hunting. These companies like Amazon, Microsoft, Google, going after logos, big enterprise companies, not only to get them into the cloud, but get them more deeply engaged in the cloud. Well, there's no bigger game than the U.S. government, the Department of Defense. There was that $10 billion JEDI cloud contract that a lot of people thought was Amazon's to lose, and they lost it. They lost it to Microsoft. They are taking it to court, and I asked Andy Jassy about that to see just how specific he would get about what he thinks was wrong with this process. He got pretty specific. Listen.
We obviously don't believe that JEDI was adjudicated fairly. I think that anybody who does a detailed apples-to-apples comparison of the platforms don't come out in the same spot that that procurement did. And most of our customers tell us we're about a couple years ahead of anybody else with regard to functionality and maturity. But, you know, there was significant political interference here. And when you have a sitting president who's willing to be very vocal that they dislike a company and the CEO of that company, it makes it difficult for government agencies, including the DoD, to make objective decisions without fear of reprisal. And I think that's dangerous and risky for our country.
So is your position that it's impossible that Microsoft won this fair and square, or just that there are real questions given the president's comments and arguably interference in this process about whether it could have been fair?
I think that if you look at the details of it, which you know, I obviously know the details of it a little bit differently than other people, but it's just hard to, very, very difficult to look at the comparison objectively and come out the way that the DoD did.
And what kinds of details are you talking about?
Just, you know, I'm pretty aware of the respective components and features and capabilities and what the requirements were in JEDI, and so. You know, I think it's quite difficult to end up making that decision that they did in a fair and objective way.
Now, tell me and tell the viewers, I think this is important, big picture, why this matters when it comes to a country like the United States, a process like military contracts. Why is this fundamentally important?
Well, you know, I think that the security of the United States, the national security of the United States, is, you know, quite important, not just to the U.S., but to the world as a whole. And when you have to make, when you have to do work to modernize your technology capabilities, as the DoD does, you need the best possible technology platform to build what you need to build on top of. And I think that not just for the national security of the country, but also if you think about the thousands of decisions that we have to make across our government that are really important for our country, those decisions have to be made on objective criteria and be free of political interference, or, you know, we're not going to make the right decisions for the country.
So did you know as soon as this decision came down that you guys were going to take this to court?
Not the second that we heard the decision. You know, like anything, you have to look at the details, and you have to understand what the rationale was, and there was a lot of data that, you know, in any one of these procurements that you get after the decision was made. But after we looked at the data carefully, there was really little question. It's, you know, I think we have to shine a light on what happened here.
How much is Jeff a part of that process? Because he certainly was a central part of the issue, it seems, as far as the president was concerned, in talking about Amazon and the possibility that that really did influence this process.
Like everything at Amazon, you know, Jeff is aware of what's going on and has a say in what's going on, and you know, and is supportive of the decision we made. Andy Jassy there, not tiptoeing around it. President Trump's interference, he says, is the central issue and why they have a problem with how the JEDI contract was awarded. Those 4 videos that they submitted, certainly part of the evidence they put together on this. Jeff Bezos, he said, did weigh in and agree with the rest of the team's decision to take this to court. And he's saying it's not just a matter of national security, but also a matter of global security based on the United States' important position. Now, we also talked about a lot more, including the presence of Chinese technology
in networks. Amazon deals with a lot of different companies all over the world. So I asked him about that specifically. He said it's not just a matter of China. It's a matter of being able to vet systems to make sure they are secure and do that constantly. Listen.
Companies have to be very thoughtful about what software they use and what equipment they use everywhere. And by the way, it's not just China. There are lots of places where you have to be really thoughtful about it. We don't really use Chinese equipment or software, but
why is that?
We just, over time, almost all the software that we use, we've built ourselves, and even in the network, we work with some players like Cisco, but we've also built a number of our own routers. Over time, for scale and for cost reasons, we've had to develop a lot of our own equipment. And same thing, we design our own hardware, we design our own chips at this point, and build our own chips. And so, but I would also say that, as I mentioned earlier, anything that we bring into our facilities, regardless of which country it comes from, we have a very rigorous and detailed and careful process to inspect. And you have to do all kinds of testing to make sure that what you're getting is what you think you're getting.
And Andy, that's what I wonder, because so much of this conversation around Chinese equipment and Chinese technology, I think, and I think you alluded to this, you need to protect against everything and everyone everywhere, right? And shouldn't there be a way, an objective way, of testing technology and testing equipment to make sure it's safe? Otherwise, if we're just looking at one particular country and deciding, well, they're the problem, well, there are a couple countries over there that maybe could slip something bad into the network where you're not looking.
Yeah, I think, again, it's kind of like, it's like software testing, it's any quality testing. There are lots of standard ways that you can test, but there are also lots of things you have to guard against. And so there isn't just one set of 10 tests that you can run and say you're good. You have to have a very full and robust set of tests that you're running all the time on your software and on your hardware. And so, I think, I think there are certain countries where you see more of this espionage type of behavior. And you have to be thoughtful if you're going to consume products or parts from those countries. But it's also true that if you have the right set of tests and if you're really diligent and rigorous about it, you can test and make sure you don't have a problem.
And you feel confident that you're doing that?
Yeah, and the AWS side and the Amazon side, yes.
And we also talked about lessons learned from what they called HQ2, the search in New York and the DC area for new facilities. Of course, New York backed out of that, or Amazon backed away from New York after encountering trouble with the local community. Lessons learned for Amazon there. We also talked about his outlook on the global economy, given the fact that he's investing so much in sales and marketing right now. Talked about that on the earnings call Amazon did, and how that could affect margins, whether that is a call on how the global economy is going to look in a year or two. He talked about long-term, the opportunity that he sees there. You can catch the entire interview online, CNBC.com. Andy Jassy clearly has a lot to say, guys.